On this episode of Arts Weekly, I'm speaking with Ranae Butler and Gary Lanier from the Fort Wayne Civic Theater about their upcoming production of Rent.
That something has been rent, ripped apart, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about their lives, their relationships.
And Reuben Brown from the African-American Historical Museum.
And Dr. King and Shuttlesworth had vowed that they was going to bring segregation to its knees.
This is Arts Weekly.
Arts Weekly is a production of the College of Visual and Performing Arts at IPFW, offering degrees in fine arts, music, theater, and visual communication and design. IPFW, the energy of arts.
Hello, I'm Chuck O'Connor, and this is Arts Weekly. Joining me is Ranae Butler, director, and Gary Lanier, choreographer. They are both here to talk about the upcoming production of the rock opera Rent, opening on February 26th at the Fort Wayne Civic Theater. It's good to have you both on the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Chuck.
And I look forward to talking about one of my favorite all-time musicals and plays, Rent, and which you guys are, you're directing it, Ranae, and Gary, you're the choreographer. But Ranae, why do they call it Rent, and what's the story of the play?
All right, well, they call it Rent for a couple of reasons. The sort of literal meaning of the word, obviously, is paying for the rent for your apartment. So we find these two young men who can, for a variety of reasons, need to come up with a year's worth of rent right away. And they are struggling bohemian artists in New York City, so that is obviously going to be a difficulty for them since they can't pay the rent.
And rent's pretty high there.
And rent is very high,
yes,
that's
indeed. Right.
And they were in a neighborhood that was just starting its gentrification process, so rent was going up and up and up. But the other meaning that something has been rent, ripped apart, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about their lives, their relationships, society, a whole society of people who were struggling with AIDS at the time.
When does the play take place, by the way?
The play takes place, he wrote it over a period of 7 years, so there are cultural references over a 7-year period. The last cultural reference is 1996. So that's when I said, okay, this will take place in 1996. But we're talking, late 80s through 96, and he's responding to that the whole period in the 80s, of course, where the homosexual community, the drug addicts when AIDS just really burst on the scene and began taking numerous lives in the artistic community. So
the play really centers around these young bohemian artists living in the village, New York City, during the height of the AIDS epidemic. If we're not still on the height of the AIDS epidemic, I'm not sure. We still may be. But nevertheless, in the late 80s, early 90s, and it has a lot of parallels to the famous musical La Boheme as well. Correct?
That's correct. In fact, years before, 10 years, I don't know, 1986, and I'm probably shaky on the numbers. He and another friend started out.
This is Jonathan Larson.
Jonathan Larson,
the playwright.
Excuse me. And another friend whose name is somewhere deep in the credits decided they were going to do a rewrite of La Boheme, and it never went off, never took off. And a few years later, he contacted this guy and said, look, I'm ready to go ahead with this. Do you want to do it? The other fellow said no, but go ahead. They had written a few songs together. I think Rent was one of them. And he took off then from there.
And of course, La Boheme takes place 100 years earlier, in the late 1900s in Paris, and you have the same scene. You have young bohemian poets, Marcello, Rodolfo, and Mimi, and famous love story. And it's paralleled a lot in this modern adaptation of Rent, which I think makes it extra interesting.
It is, and there are of course the parallels of the artist struggling against the man, you know, mainstream society, what the choices they're going to make to pursue their art, what the sacrifices they're going to make. But then there's also the element of disease. In La Boheme, the disease was TB, which was associated with the, you know, the lower class, and in the lower class in the artistic community, and then in the 80s, of course, with the artistic community as well. So,
right. I think it's what makes it so relevant today. Gary, a question for you. You're the choreographer. What's distinct and what's unique about choreographing for a play like Rent, a rock opera?
Well, I think it's important that the choreography stems from the plot and it's not just dance there for dance's sake. So I think it has to further what has been happening in the scene prior to that, and then lead on into what is happening after that as well. So I basically have been influenced in this by seeing several productions of Rent. I've seen the movie. I don't always think that movies are necessarily the best adaptation of the stage versions. It usually depends on the director. But I was really influenced by all those, and then I kind of have my own style too, that they all kind of meld together and something evolves from all of that. Then.
But do you draw upon the dance of the period, the contemporary dance of the late 80s, early 90s? I mean, I think of disco, but it's a little bit after that.
A little bit after that, yeah.
But you draw on that?
A bit. Some of it is. There's actually a tango number in the show as well. So that's a little more classically oriented. I've got a little bit what you might consider modern dance in the show as well. I wouldn't consider it a show that has a lot of dance in it compared to a lot of other musicals that I've choreographed.
Okay. And how do you go about the casting process? You know, I'm always amazed at musical theater people because they have to sing, dance, and act, and it's that's a rare talent. I can't do any of the three, but if I could do just one, I'd be happy. Yet you have to find people that can do all three. Do you not? Is it tricky doing the casting for this kind of play?
It can be. We did have a large amount of people audition for this show, so. It was the casting process is usually long, but we had the people that we needed, though. We didn't have to seek elsewhere.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent in this town.
Absolutely.
Ranae, we're getting back to the whole the whole idea of this is a play that was written 15, 16, 17 years ago, and it centers. One of its themes is the AIDS epidemic, and you know, we had Greg Manifold from the AIDS Task Force on last year, and he was saying, you know what, AIDS is still going on, and one of the things that they're experiencing is that people have kind of forgotten, and in a similar way, how do you keep that theme fresh in the show, and what makes it so compelling in a 2011 production of Rent?
Well, that's a good question because somebody brought that up. They said, you know, is this just old and dated and irrelevant? And I certainly don't think so at all, for a variety of reasons. The first thing we did was we brought Gregory Manifold and a couple representatives from the AIDS Task Force into a rehearsal. And they spent a couple hours with us, talking to us about the disease, past and present. And remember, a lot of our cast members, they weren't around when we were around.
Because the age range in the play is early 20s or 30s.
Right, 20s to 30s. So, you know, they were 5 years old when this struck us. And, you know, we had friends who were passing from the disease. And it seems a distant past to them. So we really needed to give that some immediacy, some historical perspective and some immediacy. So that was the very first thing we did. The other thing is it's not just about the AIDS epidemic. So it's about, it's a
love story.
It's a love story. You know, it's about human beings making connections.
Right.
And that's just absolutely timeless.
When did you first see it?
Oh gosh, I saw it probably, I don't know, 8 years ago, 10 years ago maybe. There was a touring production that came to Fort Wayne, and I saw it then. And of course, I'd already had the album, the CD.
Well,
go ahead.
But you know, in a lot of ways, you know, especially working here at a university, this is one of the most popular plays of its generation. It will move you if whoever sees it. I think that's guaranteed. I don't want to,
No pressure.
no pressure there. But are the cast? Are they getting into it? I mean, are they understanding it? Are they?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have had rehearsals where the cast is crying at the end of certain numbers, and you can just it's the pain and the the emotion in the room is palpable. Anyone who isn't moved by this story, what happens and how the people respond to it, was asleep.
So Gary, what's the appropriate age for this play for the audience?
I think that's going to vary between, as far as parents go, if they're bringing children to the show. There is adult content in the show, and there is strong language in the show. So I think it's going to vary from parent to parent on how they deal with that with their children. So, but I think you will see teenagers there, and I think you'll see all age ranges there.
It's a real story.
Absolutely.
Full of real adult
It really tugs at the
themes.
heartstrings, and it really does, I think, play to people in general.
So parents should use their discretion?
I'd say so.
But it's really up to the parent.
I'd say so.
Okay. Ranae, one final question. What would you like the audience to feel coming out of this play?
Well, you brought up the song Seasons of Love. That's the song everyone is familiar with, the song on the commercial. And in the song, one of the lyrics is, no day but today. And that's what I want people to walk out saying, yes, I have this one day. How am I going to choose to live this day? Am I going to open up to the connections I can make with people? Will I embrace the possibilities and live my life to the fullest?
I agree. I think when I came out of that play, when I first saw it, that's exactly how I felt. We seem to think it's going to last forever, but it's not. It could be done tomorrow. And of course, people with AIDS really know that.
Right.
And I think we could all stand to be reminded of it once in a while. And if theater can't do it, I don't know what could.
No. Well, we sure look forward to you coming.
I'm looking forward to it as well. I know you have lots of tech rehearsals this week. This is real crunch time for you. But you're going to open on February 26th at the Arts United Center. And I wish you the best on the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you both for coming down. For more information about the Fort Wayne Civic Theater and how you can see Rent, visit fwcivic.org. Arts Weekly will return in a moment.